Why doesn't God abandon a deceiver on the run like Jacob, but instead uses a desert dream and a meeting with Rachel at a well to flip his story upside down and rewrite his entire life? The sun was sinking behind the rocky hills when Jacob left Bethel. His cloak was stained with road dust. His legs felt heavy after days of walking across sunburned fields. The desert wind swept past his face, carrying the dry smell of scorched grass, hot earth, and the distant bleating of flocks lost somewhere in the space around him. The night before, he had slept on hard ground, using a stone as his pillow. There, on the bare earth, he dreamed of a ladder standing on the ground with its top reaching all the way into heaven, angels of God going up and down on it. When he woke, his whole body trembled as he whispered, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." But as the fresh light of morning slowly faded into a pale gold, the dream began to feel far away again. In front of Jacob now stretched a long, endless road, leading him toward Haran, a strange land where his uncle Laban lived. In his hand, he had only a staff. In his bag, a little food. In his heart, the promise of God was carved deep like a hidden mark. Behind him lay Beersheba, the tents of his parents, Esau, his twin brother, burning with rage. Ahead of him lay a land where no one knew his name, a future that was completely hidden. With every heavy step, Jacob carried a wound nobody could see. He knew he had deceived his father to steal the blessing. In his ears, he could still hear Esau's cry of heartbreak. In his memory, he still saw the dim eyes of Isaac, clouded with age, as the truth came too late to fix. Guilt, fear, regret. They clung to him like an invisible weight across his shoulders. Some nights, lying alone under the cold sky, he would stare up at the stars and whisper into the darkness, "For someone like me, will God still keep his promise? Do I even deserve his presence anymore?" The night wind slipped past and the soft hum of insects rose around him, sounding like a distant, unclear answer that never quite formed into words. One day, after a long stretch of walking, the land opened up in front of him. The sun was still high, its light sharp and blinding as it bounced off pale stones scattered across the field. In the middle of that open land, Jacob saw a deep well. Its mouth was covered by a large stone. Several flocks of sheep lay scattered around the well, their hooves shifting restlessly, their dry bleating cutting through the hot air. A small group of shepherds stood together nearby, cloaks fluttering in the wind. The smell of wool, sweat, and dust mixed with the familiar scent of a shepherd's life. Jacob walked closer, his heart beating a little faster. This might be the land of Haran. He raised his voice and called out a greeting, then asked, "Brothers, where are you from?" One of the shepherds answered, "We're from Haran." Jacob's heart pounded in his chest. He quickly asked, "Do you know Laban, the grandson of Nahor?" "We know him," they replied with a nod. "He's doing well." Those simple words felt like cool water poured over a dry, tired soul. Jacob was very close to his uncle's home, but something else bothered him. The sun was still blazing overhead, yet the flocks just lay there, thirsty, and no one was letting them drink. Jacob glanced at the heavy stone over the mouth of the well, then asked, "Look, the day is still long. It's not the time to gather the livestock. Why don't you water the sheep and take them back out to pasture?" The shepherds shook their heads. "We can't," one of them said. "We have to wait until all the flocks are gathered. Only then do we roll the stone away from the well's mouth together and water the sheep. That's the rule here." While they were speaking, a murmur rose from farther off. Jacob turned to look. From the far edge of the field, through a golden haze of dust, a young woman was walking toward them, a flock of sheep following behind her like little white clouds drifting across the ground. The wind tugged at her robe. The late afternoon sunlight brushed her young face, her bright eyes, and the quick, sure steps of someone used to working in the open fields. The shepherd said, "Look, Rachel is coming with her father's sheep. That's Laban's daughter." In a single moment, Jacob found himself standing still. He could hear the soft thud of hooves on the earth, the faint jingle of bells, and underneath all of it, the strong, loud beating of his own heart. After so many days, surrounded only by strangers, he was seeing, for the first time, someone who was family, if only by bloodline and distant stories. A strange joy rose inside him. It was sweet and trembling all at once, like the feeling of finally seeing a light after walking in the dark for too long. When Rachel came near, the smell of fresh grass clinging to the sheep's wool mixed with the breath of the open field. She stopped by the well, her eyes full of surprise as she looked at the unfamiliar man standing there. Jacob's face still showed traces of exhaustion, but in his gaze there was a clear, unhidden sincerity. He stepped forward and drew in a deep breath, as if pulling together every last piece of courage left in him after the long journey. Without waiting for the other shepherds, Jacob walked straight to the large stone over the well. Hands that had known a shepherd's staff since childhood, hands shaped by work under the open sky, gripped the edge of the rock. He poured all his strength into that moment, his loneliness, his regret, his homesickness, and his thin, fragile hope. With a deep, strained groan, the stone began to move. Slowly, it rolled away from the mouth of the well. A soft murmur of surprise rippled across the field. Cool water shimmered below, its surface catching the reflection of the sky above. Jacob quickly drew water into troughs and set them before Rachel's flock. The sheep pressed in, drinking eagerly, the sound of water splashing and bubbling mixing with their bleating, the whole scene pulsing with the simple joy of life being renewed. Rachel stood beside him, eyes wide. She was both amazed and moved. Not everyone would break custom to help a young woman shepherd like this. Only when her sheep had drunk their fill did Jacob turn to face Rachel fully. His voice trembled as he said, "I am Jacob, son of Rebekah. My mother is your father's sister." In that instant, the distance between a wandering exile and the warmth of family seemed to shrink. Jacob began to weep. Tears that had been stored up all through the long road finally fell. Not tears of despair, but tears of release, of relief, of a heart that felt it had finally reached some kind of shore. Rachel listened, and understanding dawned in her eyes. The man in front of her was not just a random traveler. He was her own kin by blood. Leaving the watering trough behind, she turned and ran. Her skirt brushed against the dust as she hurried down the familiar path home. Her footsteps echoed along the worn track. The sound of the sheep faded into the distance behind her. She had to tell her father, "Father, Jacob is here, the son of Aunt Rebekah. He's at the well." When Laban heard his sister's name, the sister who had once left home to follow Abraham, he rose to his feet at once. He hurried out of the tent, his cloak flying behind him, his heart beating with excitement. The road to the well felt shorter than ever. When he saw Jacob from afar, Laban could not hold back his emotion. He ran to meet him, threw his arms around him, kissed him, and poured out words of welcome. That night, under the flicker of oil lamps, with the distant bleating of sheep like a soft background song, Jacob told the whole story. He spoke of the trick he had played on his father, the blazing anger of Esau, his mother's urgent warning to flee, the dream of the ladder at Bethel, and the promise of God. Laban listened closely, nodding now and then, his eyes filled with a mixture of compassion and joy. Then he said to Jacob, "You are my own flesh and blood. Here you are not a stranger." In the days that followed, a new rhythm of life began for Jacob. He stayed in Laban's house and blended into the life of that family. Every morning, while the sky was still gray and the roosters were calling from far away, Jacob would rise and go out with the shepherds, leading the flocks into the fields. The wind of Haran no longer felt like the wind of a lonely traveler. It carried the scent of home, of work, of new responsibilities. Out on those fields, with each passing day, Jacob would often see Rachel, the young shepherdess with clear eyes and diligent hands. Slowly, quietly, a deep, honest love began to grow in his heart. Jacob started to understand something he had missed before. God had not only led him across the desert to escape Esau's rage, God had guided him step by step to the exact place he wanted him to be, to meet the exact person he had chosen. That meeting at the well had not been an accident of timing. It was a turning point in God's plan, a key step in the story of the promise first spoken to Abraham and then to Isaac, a promise that would now continue through Jacob. In the years to come, these same footsteps would carry Jacob into another chapter. 7 years of labor for the sake of love for Rachel, a wedding night full of shocking twists and long, stretching years where he would have to learn how to trust God in the middle of human schemes and manipulation. But all of that begins here, with a stone rolled from a well, a girl arriving with her flock, and a runaway learning that God still writes stories with broken people. Don't miss the next episode. If this story touched you, consider sharing it and staying with us for the next chapter in Jacob's journey.